Hello everyone, welcome to the video. Been a little while since I've posted a video, had a lot of things going on over the past few years, but find myself with a little bit of time and I wanted to talk you through how to set up the new 901 Vertical Classics by Mr. Burns. So then, this is the image. Now on first boot you will of course have to enter your controller configuration. I've already done it, so that's why it skipped the screen. But you just need to run through the normal configuration of your controller and you will be landed on this screen. Now, ignore any of these for now. Let's just go straight into RetroPie. And in here, of course, you can set up anything you need to first. You can set up what audio you want. So if you want it to come out of your HDMI, or if you wanted to come out of the 3.5mm jack, you can set that up in there. Set up any Bluetooth controllers or anything if you needed to. Anything you want to do, you can do it here first. But the main thing we want to do, ultimately, is to get that screen rotated. So as you can see, this is a vertical image, but currently it's in horizontal mode. And that's because we have a nice little file folder here, which inside it has rotation configurations. Now, your monitor is either going to be rotated left or it's going to be rotated right. And you might not know which way it's been rotated because it's already in a build, like an Arcade 1-Up cabinet, for example. But that's fine. You'll be able to tell because one of these is going to look correct and the other is going to look upside down. So if your monitor is rotated left, then this is going to look correct to you. It's going to be the right way around. But if your monitor is rotated right, this one's going to look correct to you. As in, it's going to be showing in the correct orientation. So choose whichever one is right for you, left or right. You'll notice we do have reset down here as well. That is only able to be used, in fact I'll show you, if I click on there now, this is to remove any rotation changes. It completely allows you to restart, but as you can see, rotation configuration is not currently applied, so there is nothing to reset. Let's just come out of there. We'll come back onto that later. I'm going to choose left rotate. So if I click into there, you'll see that we now have options for different resolutions. 1024 by 768, which is a 4:3 aspect ratio. 1280 by 1024, which is a 5:4 ratio, and so on and so forth down here. Hopefully covered the majority of resolutions that are needed. These are the most common ones. I'm going to choose 1080p left rotation, and the reason for that is because, and all I do there, by the way, is click on it. The reason for that is because I want to show you the bezels and the marquees as well. So you'll see a message pops up on your screen, applying rotation config, copying necessary files, and this could take upwards of 1 minute. Please do not turn off your Pi whilst the transfer is taking place. Now, it probably will take around 1 minute, so what it's doing at the moment is it's copying over bezel files, it's copying over the marquees, it's copying over the correctly rotated loading screens, the overlays for Vectrex, things like that. So it's basically moving all of the files to where they need to be based on what option you chose, whether it was left rotate or right rotate. And it's making all of the tweaks to front ends, to emulators, that sort of thing, based on what aspect ratio you've chosen and based on the resolution that you've chosen. Now the reason it's been done this way is because with the last Mr. Burns image, it was only rotated one direction. I think it was the opposite direction to people who use Arcade 1-Up cabs, and of course that meant they had to do extra work to correct the rotation and the different resolutions, that sort of thing. This script approach tries to take care of everything for you, so you can just choose whatever you want, click a button and you're away. So here we are, we've loaded into attract mode, and as you can see the intro screen there was rotated to the left, and the screen that we're currently looking at is rotated to the left, and it's set the resolution to 1080p. So this is where you'll be landing in. This is just a list of all the games that is on the image. As you scroll through them, you'll see the background changes, the marquee changes on the little arcade to the left. This is the Novato theme. If I open up one of these games, what you should find is that the marquee will be applied. Oh, there's your loading screen, so that's correctly orientated. So every ROM that you load will show that the correct loading screen for it. And there we go. So we've got bezels on and we've got the marquee on as default when you choose any resolution that has an aspect ratio of 16:9. So scan lines are also on by default, just because I'm guessing most people will be using this on an LCD monitor and therefore they'll want to get the best look out of it. But here we go. If I insert a couple of coins, we can show you it working. And there it is. So bezels on, marquee on, and scan lines on by default. I'll just exit out this game. So like I say, this is your main full list of arcade games here. As you scroll through, you can see there's a ton of them on here. I think that was a bit of a complaint in the last Mr. Burns 801 image. It's that there's just too many games and you've got to scroll through every single time. The way that this changes now is that we have a favorites menu. So if I just go off to the left here, we'll see that we have a different display here. Now these are all arcade games as well, but these are only arcade games that have been added to your favorites. So as I scroll through, you'll see I've already added a few in just to get you started, but this is a different display. So this is using the Arcade SD theme, and anything you add as a favorite will end up in here. If I just open this game up, you'll see this is Dig Dug loading up. That was the loading screen, and here's the marquee, and as you can see the bezels are still on and the scan lines are on. If I just exit out here, now to add things onto favorites, it's by default it binds to the F key. So if I was to press F on here, it'll say, do you want to remove Dig Dug from favorites? Yes. And once I go out and back in again, you'll see that it's gone. If I go back to here, let's go and find it again, for example, or let's just find any game. Bermuda Triangle, for example. Press F, add Bermuda Triangle to favorites. Yes. Now once I go back to here, I should find in the B's we now have Bermuda Triangle. And it's as easy as that to add and remove things into this menu. And the idea is that this would become your main game list, if you like, which is filtered down to only the games that you want to see. And instead of having to run through every single 800 and something games that are on there, you would just have a list of only the ones that are your favorites, and it's a much easier way to get to the games that you want to get to. So that's arcade and that's favorites. Let's have a look along to the right here, and we've also got Vectrex games. Vectrex is a vertically orientated system. So in here we've got 23 Vectrex games, and they've all got obviously wheel art, they've got the overlays set up for them. So if I just pick one here, Spike for example, there's the loading screen, and here's the game itself with the overlay on top of it. Now this is stretched to full screen no matter what aspect ratio you choose. So we're in a 16:9 aspect ratio here, and of course it's stretched to full screen. You might not want it to do that. You might want it to be more faithful to how the Vectrex was, and that's fine. You can change that in the config files, but by default it is going to stretch it to full screen no matter what resolution that you choose. And I've just died straight away. But anyway, that's Vectrex. So then, if I go along all the way to the left, we'll see we have this screen. And in here, I can toggle scan lines, I can toggle overlays, and I can toggle console text. Now, just to quickly show you, these are just a quick touch of the button, click on that, toggle scan lines, and that has removed scan lines. Clicking on that has removed the overlays, which is the bezel and the marquee. So now, if I go back to a game, let's load Donkey Kong, what we should find is that instead of having the marquee and the bezel, it is now the full screen. And of course we've turned the scan lines off, and there you go. So it's no longer showing the scan lines, and it's no longer showing the bezels or the marquees. If I decide that I want them back on again, just exit out the game, go along here, toggle overlays, and again this is just one click. No matter what resolution or anything you've chosen, the scripts in the background are going to take care of it all, the viewport window, everything like that. Go back in the Donkey Kong, and what we should find this time is that it's put those bezels back on and the scan lines. There you go. As easy as that. So let's exit out of this again. I wanted to quickly show you how you would set up controllers in here. So by default, it will pull through some of the controls that you've set up when you done your setup in Emulation Station. But if you wanted to change anything else, press Tab, and this brings you into the Attract Mode configuration menu. So you've got general options in there. You've got all sorts of different things in fairness, but what you're looking for is controls. So if you click into there, you can see you have all of these controls which we've already set up, about how to move to the next game, how to move to the next displays. You can change all that if you've got dedicated buttons, for example, that you want to change games with or change displays with, anything like that. We can go down here, you've got filters, menus, you've got, I wouldn't bother doing anything with rotation, but you want to look down here at add remove favorite. So if you click on here, I could choose a button that adds a favorite, for example. I could add input, which could just be simply my joystick button 3. So every time I press my joystick button 3 now, it's going to use that as the favorites toggle. And again, anything you want, all sorts of different things you can do here, but that is where you would set up your controls. Displays, there's another option in here. Now in here, the only ones we're using is arcade, favorites, and right down the bottom, attract mode. But if we go to favorites, for example, currently we're using the SD Arcade theme. I could change that if I wanted to. I found a good Arcade 1-Up style theme. Not something I've made myself, just something I found on the internet. And there we go. You can see that this is now using the Arcade 1-Up theme. If I wanted to change that back again, all I've got to do is press Tab, go to Displays, Favorites, and choose a layout file there by clicking Enter on it and finding the one that I want. Let's put it back to SD Arcade V4. And there we go, it's back to what I wanted. Now, the games lists that they use, by default, it will include adult games. If you want to change that, again, press Tab, go up to Displays. Let's choose Arcade first of all. And in here, we can choose Collection ROM List. As you can see, it's currently on Arcade. We can change it to Arcade No Adult. And that's going to remove any adult games that are on there, just in case, you know, you've got children who are playing on here. But what you might want to do as well is you might want to do exactly the same for favorites, because that's also pulling out from the Arcade ROM list. Change that so that is also Arcade No Adult. And then anything that you add as a favorite from the Arcade No Adult list will end up in here. I think the idea is really that once you've set up all of your favorite games, you probably wouldn't end up using this main menu here after you've set up all your favorites. Instead, you would just use a smaller collection of games in here, and this is probably the only display that you would ever need to use. But with that being said, you might not want to use attract mode at all, and that's fine. I've set it up so it can be switched to Emulation Station, and with that it will also be rotated in Emulation Station, as will the console. Oh, speaking of the console, sorry, let me quickly touch on this. By default, you'll notice when you load a game, you'll not see any sort of text. All the console text has been hidden by default. That does mean if you exit out to the console that you won't be able to see what you're typing. Now, if you need to do something in the console where you need to type something out, do any sort of commands, or if you just want that text back on again, all you've got to do is click that button, and then on the next reboot, you will have the console text back again. If you've then done what you need to do and you want to turn it off again, so it's nice, clean, no text in between the games, just come back in here, click that again, and it's on your next reboot, it's going to turn the console text off again. But that aside, if you want to go back to Emulation Station, all you've got to do is click on this button and this will take you back to Emulation Station. So let's do that now. So here we are back in Emulation Station, and as you can see, it's changed it to a vertical theme. This is just a good vertical theme that I found on the internet. Everything is rotated the correct way, the way that we asked it to, left rotate. And in here, you can see you can just use Emulation Station in the normal way. Everything's rotated the right way. If you were to choose any of these games, it'll just act the same way as it would have in attract mode, but instead we are using Emulation Station as a front end. There you go. Marquees are on, bezels are on, scanlines are on. If you don't want them on, come out of here, go to RetroPie menu, and down the bottom you should see two options, toggle overlays and toggle scanlines. And again, these will just do exactly the same as what they do in attract mode. They'll turn on and off the scanlines and the overlays. Vectrex is here as well. So, if you decided you didn't want the rotation option that you've applied, you can reset it. And all you would do is you would go to the RetroPie menu, choose Rotate Configuration, and select Reset. Now clicking on this, it's going to reset everything back to horizontal as if you had just opened up this image afresh. So click on that, it's going to tell me that it's going to reset everything and then it's going to reboot. There we go. And here we are back into Emulation Station with no rotation applied, and you can see it's went back to the normal carbon theme. So from here I could go back to the RetroPie menu, I could go back down to Configure Screen Rotation, and I could choose something different. I could choose right rotation this time, I could stick with left. I won't be able to do a reset. If I do try and do that, it's going to tell me there's nothing to reset. Rotate configuration is not currently applied, so there's nothing to reset. We've already done it. Now, unfortunately, my capture card doesn't support resolutions that aren't HD. So it only really supports 720p and 1080p. I can't show you, in that case, the 4:3, 5:4 aspect ratios. So instead, I'm just going to choose 720p right rotation this time. So different resolution, different rotation. And once I click on that, because this is a 16:9 ratio again, it's going to copy those bezel files And there we are, back into attract mode again. And now we're on 720p resolution, and we are rotated to the right instead of the left. So if you'd selected the wrong thing, all you've got to do is go back to Emulation Station, change it around, choose a different option, and away you go again. And really that's about it. So like I say, the main way I think you'll use this is adding favorites out of this main long list. Again, there's a ton of games in here. There's nearly 900 games here, and there's the extra ones with Vectrex. So choose your arcade games that you want, add them to favorites, and then use your favorites wheel here, which is a nice simple way to have a smaller selection of games, easily accessed, and away you go. And again, if you'd rather, by all means switch into Emulation Station and you can use that instead. But yeah, that's about it really. Thanks for watching. Any questions, anything like that, just pop them in the chat below and I shall endeavour to get back to you. Cheers.